When I was pushed into the 500 square meter swimming pool, I had an awakening. It turned out that my gold digger fiancé was the male protagonist, and that delicate poor student in his arms was the female protagonist. And I was just the supporting female character in the contrast verb for the two of them? No wonder my situation had become more and more difficult as the female protagonist appeared. It must have been me who pushed her into the swimming pool. It must have been me who sabotaged her chances of getting the scholarship. Even my act of sponsoring her was seen as having ulterior motives. And at this moment, even though I was on the verge of drowning at the bottom of the pool, she was still playing up her poverty and helplessness. Astra drinks red wine that's more expensive than my whole family's lives. It's normal for her to treat me like this. Please don't blame her anymore. On the verge of death, I suddenly burst with potential and leapt out of the water in one go. This time, I decided not to indulge them anymore. Bullshit. I was clearly drinking orange juice. The villa was ablaze with lights. Today was my 20th birthday party, and also my engagement banquet with my boyfriend. Traitor. But now he was staring at me furiously. Astra, I thought you were just proud and willful. But I never expected you to be so vicious. Just because Schemer accidentally spilled red wine on you, you pushed her into the swimming pool? Given the size of your family's swimming pool, you clearly intended to commit murder. You'd better pray that nothing happens to Schemer, or I will never let you off. I stood there, stunned, wanting to explain. I really didn't push Schemer. She slipped accidentally. But there was no chance for me to explain. Traitor turned around and jumped into the water. The girl in the swimming pool flailed about in fear, crying pitifully, "Help! Help me!" Cough. Cough. Traitor was a good swimmer. Soon, I went out a little sorry. He carried Schemer out of the water. She was soaked through. Even in an ordinary-looking outfit, she couldn't hide her graceful figure. Sensing that more and more lecherous eyes were on her, I quickly handed her a towel and tried my best to block her shivering body with my own. Schemer, are you okay? You can go to my room and change into some clothes. Before I could finish my sentence, Traitor angrily swatted away the towel I offered, exposing Schemer in her September outfit to everyone's gaze again. He looked at me with a cold stare. Don't play the good Samaritan here. But when he looked at Schemer, his coldness melted away, and his face softened. Schemer, tell me, did she push you into the water just now? He was supposed to be my fiancé. Schemer finally recovered from the fear of falling into the water. She timidly looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. So this was the type of girl Traitor liked? Always gentle. Always able to arouse a man's protective instincts. Like a little deer. Just as I was feeling self-deprecating, Schemer opened her mouth and spoke shakily. Heh. Traitor. If you knew you had wronged me, you'd probably regret it to the core. Right? Brother Traitor. I just choked on a few mouthfuls of water. I'm fine. Please stop asking. And don't quarrel with Astra either. Upon hearing this, Traitor sneered, looking as if he had expected this. Astra, you're really something. You must have bullied Schemer a lot. Right? She's so scared now that she doesn't even dare to tell the truth. My heart sank, and I widened my eyes slightly, leaving aside why Schemer was framing me. My boyfriend, who grew up with me since childhood, actually sided with an outsider the whole night? The commotion caused by the three of us was so big that all the relatives and friends around us looked over. The upbringing of an heir to a wealthy family allowed me to restrain myself even though I was extremely angry inside. And I didn't lose my composure. Seeing that Traitor was about to carry Schemer away, I stopped him. Traitor, don't forget what day it is today. As soon as I finished speaking, Schemer flinched and then bit her lower lip tightly. With this reaction, it further confirmed the fact that I had pushed her into the water and was still being unreasonable. Sensing the subtle movement of the person in his arms, Traitor furrowed his brows in annoyance and pushed me aside more forcefully. The 18-centimeter Valentino heels on my feet immediately made me lose my balance. Following Schemer, I also fell into the swimming pool. In an instant, water sealed my mouth and nose from all directions. A sense of suffocation overwhelmed me. I wanted to call for help, but when I opened my mouth, all that came out were bubbles. At the moment when my brain was about to lose consciousness, Some memories that didn't belong to me appeared before my eyes like a projection. It turned out that I was the supporting female character in a feel-good novel. A haughty young lady from a wealthy family. The female protagonist was someone else. It was Schemer, who grew up in an orphanage, had been working part-time while studying hard, and was striving to make progress. She had the script of a feel-good novel, so I was destined to be a cannon fodder. No wonder when I was 16 years old, our family, the Astra, wanted to choose a sponsorship recipient. Among thousands of people, the unremarkable Schemer was unanimously approved and successfully selected. It was all because of the female protagonist's halo. No wonder our sponsorship of her was not limited to money. When she proposed, the educational environment and teaching staff in public schools are too poor. I want to study in a private noble school like Sister Astra, and then go abroad for further study in the future so that I can learn better and repay the Astra family. Even though it was such an outrageous request, our family still agreed. We spent a lot of money to pull strings for her and arranged for her to go to the same school as me. After she entered the school, instead of studying hard as she promised, she did her best to steal my boyfriend. Ah, Traitor. Today was the time when she and Traitor fully revealed their feelings for each other. And from today on, my life would gradually fall into the abyss. I would go down the path of trying my best to harm Schemer. Not only having no time to manage the company's affairs but also being slapped in the face by her every time. Falling from the position of a beloved daughter of a wealthy family, I would become a vicious supporting female character that everyone despised. Finally, heading fulfilled my obsession. Because of my willfulness, I would also cause the company's stock price to plummet. And the entire Astra family would be easily acquired by Schemer. She would thus become the youngest female richest person in the country. And at this moment, even though I was on the verge of drowning at the bottom of the pool, I could still vaguely hear the future female richest person crying even more pitifully than me. Astra drinks red wine that's more expensive than my whole family's lives. It's normal for her to treat me like this. Please don't blame her anymore. To be fair, Schemer had indeed never tried to harm me. How could the hands of the female protagonist be stained with dirt? But every time she remained silent, every tear she shed, and every time she furrowed her brows, all directed the deepest malice towards me. Everyone around me would accuse me of being too arrogant and mean. To put it bluntly, Schemer played a significant role in making sure that all the blame ended up on me. When my anger reached its peak, and he let out a low sigh, it was as if a string in my mind snapped. I had an awakening. To hell with the contrast group. I'm not going to play this role anymore. To hell with Traitor and Schemer. No one should ever think of controlling my destiny again. On the verge of death, I suddenly burst with potential, and leapt out of the water in one go. This time, I decided not to indulge them all. Wiping the water off my face, I shouted at this despicable couple, "Bullshit. I was clearly drinking orange juice. It's more reasonable to say that you knew he was engaged and still flirted with my fiancé than to say that you spilled my red wine." After shouting this, I finally exhausted my strength and fainted. Well, I'll give them one more night to enjoy the treatment of being the male and female protagonists. After one night, I will rewrite this world with my own hands. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital. My throat was extremely dry and hoarse. As I was propping myself up to reach for the water cup on the table, Traitor walked into the ward. "You're awake? I'm taking you to apologize to Schemer." As he spoke, he was about to drag me out of bed, ignoring the fact that I had just recovered from a serious illness. It would have been better if he hadn't shown up. As soon as I saw him, I remembered how he would cheat on me in the future and even collude with Schemer to bring down my family. Anger rushed to my head. Without thinking, I raised my hand and slapped him. I used too much force, and a clear slap mark quickly appeared on Traitor's right cheek. He froze in place. "Astra, are you crazy? How dare you hit me like this?" I curled my lips. "So what if I hit you?" I even think my hand got dirty. This was the first time I talked back to him. In the past, I had always obeyed Traitor's every word, for fear of making him angry. Now, who would indulge him anymore? Traitor's face dark and like the bottom of a pot. "I used to think you had a gentle personality, but now it seems You're not even a fraction as good as Schemer. I, Traitor, can't afford to have a girlfriend as savage and rough as you. Let's break up. Don't have anything to do with me from now on. Just as I was about to speak, Traitor's mother pushed the door open and came in. You ungrateful wretch. She said this to Traitor. But when she turned to me, she put on an ingratiating expression. Auntie heard that you fell into the water and came to see you specially. But then I heard you two talking about breaking up. Traitor, why don't you hurry up and coax Astra? As she spoke, she pretentiously pushed Traitor. But Traitor held his head up and pretended not to hear. I smiled. It's not necessary. Even if you didn't propose a breakup, I would have done it myself. He had threatened to break up with me many times before. Every time, I was bound by my persona and would cry in compromise. This time, he was repeating his old trick, betting that I would bow my head and apologize as usual, beg for his forgiveness, and then offer several major projects of the Astra family to his family. His calculations were so obvious. But I had awakened. How could I continue to be manipulated? It wasn't until I pressed the butt and beside the bed and asked the nurse to escort them out that the mother and son were stunned, as if waking up from a dream. Especially Traitor. He stared at me in disbelief, his face turning from green to white. Traitor's mother forced a smile. Oh, don't talk nonsense. I only recognize you, Astra, as my family's daughter-in-law. No other messy people are allowed to enter the Traitor family. This time, Traitor didn't protect you well. Which made you fall into the water. How about I ask him to apologize to you? I nodded and hummed in response. Before Traitor's mother could heave a sigh of relief, I pointed at the ground. Let him kneel down and apologize to me to show his sincerity. Traitor's mother said in a dilemma. This. What? Do you think you can just brush me off with a few insincere apologies? That's right. I was deliberately provoking Traitor. He didn't even want to say a word of apology. And there was no way he would lower himself to kneel and apologize. That's fine. Let his family know when to quit and stop pestering me. Traitor's mother still wanted to mediate. But Traitor directly stopped his mother. He looked tough and haughty, sizing me up from above. I'm warning you. Don't go too far. You've learned to play hard to get, haven't you? Don't think I'll fall for your tricks. If we break up, then we'll see who comes crying and begging me to get back together. After saying that, he grabbed his mother and turned to leave. I sat on the hospital bed and looked coldly at their retreating backs, feeling like vomiting on the spot. It's really the heavens have eyes. But I was blind. I actually fell for such a scumbag like him. I quickly called my assistant and asked him to deal with matters related to the dissolution of the engagement. By the way, having fulfilled my obsession, I asked him to terminate all cooperation with Traitor's family and withdraw the funds. I won't support this guy who lives off women anymore. As for Schemer, according to the plot of the original book, with the sponsorship of the Astra family and a large amount of scholarship every year, she would start her own business soon. This time, I won't give her this chance. I directly stopped the Astra family's sponsorship of Schemer. Without the original capital accumulation, I want to see how she can succeed in starting a business. And the scholarship? She won't get it either. I won't help this ungrateful person anymore. After the final exams of the junior year ended, the list of scholarship recipients would be announced soon. The questions this year were so difficult. I wonder who can get the first place. It must be Schemer. She has won the scholarship for several years in a row. Schemer, when you get the bonus later, remember to treat our dormitory to a meal. Several girls surrounded Schemer, flattering her one after another. And Schemer blushed from their praise and said softly and sweetly, "Don't talk nonsense. The list hasn't been officially announced yet." One of the girls patted Schemer on the shoulder. "Don't worry, Schemer. Your grades have always been the best in our major. If the scholarship quota isn't given to you, is it going to be given to her?" As she said that, she glanced in my direction. I raised my eyebrows but didn't say anything. But my best friend beside me has a hot temper. She immediately slapped the table and stood up. "What are you insinuating about? You fail the exams every time. By looking up to Schemer like this." Are you expecting her to give you some points? The girl was taken aback by the retort. Just as she reacted and was about to curse back, the instructor walked into the classroom with a stack of materials. She had to shut up for the time being, but her eyes glared at us fiercely. Until the instructor announced the recipient of this year's scholarship. The malice in her eyes instantly turned into bewilderment. This, Eddie said, how is this possible? The first place is Astra? Schemer also looked shocked. She raised her head and looked at the instructor in disbelief. Yes, having fulfilled my session. Teacher. Is there a mistake? The instructor of our major has always been cold-faced and serious. And he handles everything impartially for everyone. Seeing Schemer's questioning, he said expressionlessly. The result has been double-checked by me several times, and there won't be any mistakes. Does Schemer have any other objections? I looked at Schemer. She bit her lower lip tightly and sat in her seat looking on the verge of tears. Her roommates beside her quickly comforted her. Not only that, soon other classmates stood up to speak out for her. I wasn't surprised. After all, she's the female lead. How could she not have some aura? Teacher. Schemer's GPA every semester is among the best in our major. How could the scholarship go to Astra? That's right. Could there be some underhanded deal? I think it's very possible. She's a wealthy young lady. Isn't it easy for her to snatch a scholarship quota? The voices of doubt grew louder and louder, and I could feel their malicious eyes directly on me. If looks could turn into sharp arrows, I'm afraid I would have been shot into a sieve by now. I stood up. Teacher. I applied to have the test papers of all the courses between me and Schemer posted up. And at the same time, recheck the calculation formula of the scholarship, so as to avoid some people being unconvinced. The instructor looked at the agitated classmates below and didn't want the matter to get bigger. So he readily nodded. The test papers were soon brought and were posted on the wall at the back of the classroom one by one. Almost everyone swarmed over, wishing they could use a magnifying glass to look, hoping to find the slightest mistake to prove that I bribed the teacher with money to get the scholarship quota. Unfortunately, having fulfilledly, they were going to be disappointed. On the examination papers of each course, my scores were higher than Schemer's. In the eyes of others, I used to chase after Traitor all day long, neglecting my studies and only thinking about how to please him. But the truth is that since breaking up with him, I have put all my heart into my studies. I either stayed in the library all day or hired private tutors for lessons. And my grades naturally improved by leaps and bounds. On the contrary, Schemer, in order to avoid me before, secretly went on dates with Traitor and skipped classes many times. Her usual scores were basically deducted completely, and her grades not only didn't improve but regressed. This year's scholarship, of course, had nothing to do with her. The truth came to light, and those who had been causing trouble earlier looked at each other in dismay. The slap in the face came too quickly, and there was more or less some embarrassment on their faces. Only Schemer's roommate was still muttering in a low voice, saying that I was just lucky this time. I was too lazy to waste time here and pulled my best friend and walked out. Wait. It was Schemer who chased after us. My best friend turned around impatiently. What else do you want? Wasn't it enough that you falsely accused Astra of pushing you into the water last time? Schemer ignored her and stared straight at me. Her gaze made me feel creepy. I also looked directly at her. What? Aren't you pretending to be weak anymore? The little dear finally showed her sharp teeth at me for the first time and tore off her disguise. She gritted her teeth and said, Astra. You did it on purpose. Right? You deliberately snatched my scholarship. I smiled. Yes. Anyone can get this money. Except you. I know you've always looked down on me. As she spoke, she took out her phone from her upper pocket and looked very proud. Unexpectedly, I've already recorded it. If I send this audio to Brother Traitor, he will definitely not want someone like you who bullies others with her power. If you want me to let you go, it's also possible. Double the sponsorship money that has been stopped. No, triple it. And transfer it to my card. So that's what she was up to. I shrugged inferiorly, not feeling threatened at all. Instead, Schemer panicked instantly. You. Aren't you the most afraid of him breaking up with you? I didn't say a word. It seems that my image of being infatuated with love is well known to everyone. Not only can't Traitor threaten me with breaking up, but even Schemer is following suit. It's really annoying. Why should I be a dog-licking traitor when I can be a proper young lady? I rolled my eyes. I've already broken up with him completely. Your news is too outdated. One of you has lost the cooperation project with my family, and the other has lost the sponsorship from my family. You two paupers. Please make sure to go on well together. I'll be in the Rolls-Royce. Schemer failed to get the scholarship and lost the sponsorship from the Astra family. She could only run around and work hard to earn money. According to the private detective I sent, she even went to Traitor for help. Unfortunately, heading for Feldley. As soon as she saw Traitor, she was severely humiliated by Traitor's mother. She didn't borrow any money and instead got herself into trouble. As for Traitor, since we broke up, I stopped all cooperation with Traitor's family. The capital flow of his family has long been cut off. They are now begging others for help everywhere and can't even take care of themselves. Let alone Schemer? I sipped the original imported Coca-Cola from 1982 and counted the days, calculating in my heart how long the small struggling company of Traitor's family could still hold on. As a result, only a week later, Traitor blocked the door of my house. He hung his head and waited outside the villa. Just as I was bringing the newly acquainted younger brother home. Who is he? Astra. You explain it to me clearly. I threw the words back at him. Who are you? Traitor was so angry that his face turned purple and he shouted, I'm your boyfriend. The fiancé you're engaged to. I curled my lips. According to Traitor's arrogant nature, he probably thought that when I said we broke up before, I was just kidding. The younger brother beside me was much better at reading the situation. After seeing my impatience with Traitor, he directly took my arm and said innocently, Sister, who is this person? He's so good at daydreaming. There's no mirror at home. But there's always urine. Right? Then he secretly leaned into my ear and whispered loudly. I can pee farther than him. Sister. Don't choose him. Traitor was almost driven crazy with anger and raised his hand to hit someone. I stood behind my younger brother and calmly supported him. Go ahead and hit. If you dare to touch him, I'll make your family go bankrupt even faster. As soon as I finished speaking, Traitor seemed to be frozen in place as if he had been cast a body immobilization spell. Then he slowly lowered his hand. By the light of the street lamp, I finally saw what he looked like now. He had lost his former high spirits and was unshaven. Ugly thing. Perhaps he finally realized that I was different from before. Traitor smiled obsequiously for the first time and spoke to me in a humble manner. Sorry. Baby. Don't be angry. There's really nothing between me and Schemer. I occasionally asked her out and had more contact with her because I wanted to find out your preferences. Please don't misunderstand. The only person I really love is you. How can she be compared with you? I looked at Traitor and was almost amused by his anger. He and I had been childhood friends for 18 years. How long had Schemer known me? Did he really need to ask an outsider like Schemer about my preferences? He was just telling blatant lies. Why on earth did I fall for him in the first place? I really can't figure it out. We didn't see eye to eye. So I directly called the security guards to drive Traitor away. When he was being dragged away with his arms held, he returned to his former arrogant appearance and shouted and cursed at me, saying that I was heartless and used despicable means to bring down his family's company. I thought for a while and stopped the security guards. You're right. I really shouldn't be too ruthless. Traitor said angrily. What evil plan are you up to now? I'm going to show you a clear path. What do you mean? I pushed the WeChat of a business partner on my phone to Traitor. That was a well-known wealthy woman in the Shanghai social circle, who was truly extravagant. She didn't have any other hobbies usually, except for having fun with good-looking young men. Clean yourself up when you go to talk about cooperation. Don't lose your basic manners. I gave Traitor a meaningful reminder. His family was on the verge of bankruptcy. Sacrificing his looks was indeed a clear path, right? At the charity dinner at the end of the month, I arrived late. As soon as my best friend saw me, she pulled me aside and told me the gossip. Traitor had already hooked up with that nearly 50-year-old rich woman and was quite favored by her. Today, he was attending the dinner as her male companion. I nodded. I had long known that Traitor was no good. He used to date me for the sake of his family's company. And now he could just as well fawn over and accompany others. As long as there is profit to be made, there is nothing this kind of person won't do. However, what I didn't expect was that Schemer actually showed up as a waitress at today's dinner. Could this be the law of chance encounters between the male and female protagonists? Don't you have eyes? You're so clumsy. I turned my head when I heard the voice. It seemed that Schemer accidentally bumped into someone and soiled the other person's dress. It happened to be the rich woman that Traitor was accompanying. Schemer didn't pay attention to the rich woman's obvious displeasure and just stared blankly at Traitor beside her. Hey, didn't you hear me talking to you? How does your hotel train its waitresses? It wasn't until the rich woman demanded that the hotel fire her that Schemer became scared and looked at Traitor with a hopeful gaze. I watched all this with amusement. She still expected Traitor to back her up as he used to. In the end, Traitor didn't even dare to meet her gaze. He could only coax the rich woman with kind words to calm down and not to bother with a mere waitress. And Schemer was severely scolded by the manager who rushed over. She ran outside crying and happened to see me watching the scene in the corner. At this moment, I hesitated, not knowing whether to say hi or bye. But she, with a pale face, spoke first. It's you. Are you satisfied with what you've done to me? Damn it. What the hell does it have to do with me? In less than 3 months, Schemer seemed to have aged a few years and lost the agility and charm she used to have. She must have been tired from working part-time everywhere. I tilted my head and looked at her. What have I done to harm you? Since you were 16 years old, the Astra family has been sponsoring your studies. Your food, clothing, shelter, and transportation may not be the best, but they are still better than those of many ordinary people. But what about you? How did you treat me? You secretly dated my boyfriend behind my back and framed me for harming you time and time again. My words seemed to tear off a delicate mask that Schemer had always worn. She shouted at me. So what? You already have so much. What's a little bit for me? I just want to have my own lover. What's wrong with that? It's so ridiculous. Does being poor make one right? I didn't want to waste any more words with her and turned to leave. But Schemer quickly caught up and, after whispering a sentence in my ear, ran away in a flash. She said, Astra, fortune may vary within 30 years. Don't look down on people. One day, I'll make you kneel in front of me and regret it. Guys, who can understand this? Sometimes, it's really helpless to listen to such second-rate lines alone. Although the development has already deviated from the original plot. Just to be on the safe side, I still asked the private detective to keep following Schemer and Traitor in case of any unexpected situations. More than a month passed quickly. There was no new development on Traitor's side. He was still obediently staying by the rich woman's side. However, Schemer. She actually imitated Traitor's behavior and hooked up with a sugar daddy. And I knew that sugar daddy very well. It was my father. At this moment, a song suddenly popped into my mind. With a chicken in the left hand, and a duck in the right hand, and a chubby baby on my back. Ye dear way. I don't know how Schemer found out about the several clubs that my father often went to. She actually went there to apply for a job as a waitress. She was originally pure and charming. And with the halo of a prestigious university student, she staged a scene of a hero rescuing a beauty. Just like that, my father and she hit it off. Looking at the photos sent by the private detective, with her looking shy and leaning against my father's arms, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Could this be what Schemer called revenge? I'm afraid she didn't find out the truth clearly. My parents' marriage was originally a business alliance. Since my mother passed away due to illness, my father has been getting more and more promiscuous outside. There are at least 8 or 10 girls like Schemer around him. And I've long been used to it. Since she is so eager to be my father's mistress, I'll give her a hand. I immediately posted these intimate photos on the school forum. In an instant, the post reached over 1,000 views. Schemer was originally recognized as the campus goddess. And topics about her always attracted attention. Not to mention that the post also contained intimate photos of her hugging an old man. This formed a sharp contrast with her usual innocence and timid at school. With her persona collapsing and others pointing fingers at her, Schemer simply took a leave of absence from school. She focused all her attention on fooling around with my father. My father doted on her especially. He kept sending her limited edition jewelry and clothes, and even bought her a large penthouse with a lake view. This made Schemer even more arrogant. She actually thought of having a child for my father, so that she could get a larger share of the property. But after taking traditional Chinese medicine and supplements for several months, she still couldn't get pregnant. This was normal, considering my father's age. But then she turned her attention to Traitor and was planning to have a child with him as a surrogate father. When the private detective told me this news, I was so shocked that I couldn't recover for a long time. When it comes to being outrageous, it has to be Schemer. For a moment, I felt that this wasn't a female protagonist's feel-good story at all. This was definitely crazy literature. On the day when Schemer invited Traitor to meet at a coffee shop in the city center, the private detective dutifully found out the specific location. I also went to that coffee shop. Wearing a mask and pulling down the brim of my hat, I chose an inconspicuous corner to sit in. When there's a good show, of course, I want to watch it up close. Traitor arrived in a hurry more than half an hour late. As soon as Schemer saw him, she said plaintively, "Brother Traitor, you've become so haggard. Did that old woman bully you in some new way again?" Traitor didn't say a word and looked as if he had suffered a great humiliation. "What about you? Didn't that old man give you any more trouble?" Tears immediately welled up in Schemer's eyes. And Traitor immediately hugged her to comfort her. I took out the melon seeds I brought and watched the two of them act out a tragic love scene while cracking the seeds. And while acting, they didn't forget to scold me. It wasn't until Schemer, with a blushing face, softly told Traitor her idea of having a child with him as a surrogate father. Traitor was only slightly stunned and then immediately nodded vigorously, grinding his teeth and saying, "You're right. Astra has made our lives so miserable. She won't have a good time either. With this child, we can at least get half of the Astra family's property. And then we'll kick Astra out of the house." After saying that, the two of them rushed straight to the big hotel next door. I realized for the first time that they were really a good match. One sacrificed his looks to be with a rich woman, and the other voluntarily became a canary of an old man. And they were still plotting to bring me down and divide the family property. They didn't know that when my grandfather was alive, he had transferred most of the shares to my name. Because my father was known for being a playboy, my grandfather was afraid that my father would squander the family fortune. In the end, what my father got was only a few properties and a monthly trust fund. Let Traitor and Schemer dream a little longer. On the weekend, I went home from school. As soon as I got to the gate of the villa, I saw my father carefully helping Schemer get out of the car. "Schemer, you have to be careful during this period of time," Schemer said cockathiously. "I'm not that delicate. It's only been 2 months." My father had a strong preference for sons over daughters and had been dreaming of having a son. When he was almost 50 years old and still had the hope of having a son, he was naturally overjoyed. He smiled and said, "This is my precious son. Of course. He's delicate." I ignored the two of them and went straight into the house. They followed closely behind. My father kept instructing the nanny to stew more nourishing soup for Schemer, and then asked someone to clean a new room for her. After bussying around for a while, he finally noticed me leisurely sitting at the dining table eating. He immediately frowned. "Astra, didn't your mother teach you basic manners? You don't even greet your elders when you see them. Where's your upbringing?" I sneered in my heart. It's one thing to scold me, but how dare he insult my mother? I said inferiorly, "My upbringing was learned from you." Sensing that the atmosphere was not good, Schemer quickly came out to smooth things over. She said a few gentle words of persuasion and quickly extinguished my father's anger. I almost wanted to clap for her. When it comes to coaxing people, Schemer really has a way. After the meal, I was about to go back to my room, but I saw that all my things had been moved out and were piled up in a mess in the corridor. The aunt beside me said in a low voice with an apologetic look, "I'm sorry, miss. I asked them to throw your things out." I turned around, and Schemer looked at me with a triumphant expression. My father had gone out for something urgent. And she didn't bother to pretend to be gentle in front of me anymore. She stroked her still flat belly with her right hand. I'm carrying the only son of the Astra family. Of course. I should live in the best room in the house. You don't have any objections. Do you, Astra? This old house was under my father's name. I'm sure that if I insisted on not giving up the room, my father would definitely tell me to get out. Since that's the case, there's no need to stubbornly fight with them about this. Sure. You can have the room. I squatted on the ground organizing the things that had been thrown out, and the aunt also hurried over to help. This scene made it seem even more to Schemer that I was afraid of her, and could only slink away to organize my things and move to another room. Her smile grew wider, as if she had already become the mistress of this villa. I also smiled. She doesn't even know, and she's on the verge of disaster. As I was approaching my senior year of university, the schoolwork became much easier. I simply devoted all my time and energy to the company. Since Schemer got pregnant and moved into my house, I rarely went back. I directly bought a house near the company. As for Traitor, he was quickly bored by the rich woman in less than half a year. His small family company was also complained about due to engineering quality issues. Not only did it officially declare bankruptcy, but it also owed a huge debt. At first, he tried to borrow money from our mutual friends in my name to pay off the debt. However, those people were shrewd. They already knew that I had completely broken up with him. So how could they lend him money? Desperate, he hated me even more and became closer to Schemer. The two of them often went on dates in private. After all, Traitor was still counting on the child in Schemer's belly to make a fortune and make a comeback. What they didn't know was that I had carefully collected all the photos of their dates, just waiting for the best moment. Soon it was Schemer's due date, and my father arranged for her to be admitted to a VIP ward. She whispered in my father's ear several times, complaining that the aunt at home didn't take good care of her. She insisted that I go there to cook soup and bring her meals. My father was eagerly looking forward to her giving birth to a son. So how could he refuse her? He asked me to go to the hospital to deliver meals and take care of her on the same day. I readily agreed. Just delivering meals wasn't enough, right? I was going to give her a big gift as well. When I arrived at the ward, my father was happily running to find the doctor, wanting to ask about Schemer's physical condition. How is this meal cooked? I have no appetite at all. Schemer first complained that the vegetables were too salty, and then she picked that the meat was overcooked. Finally, having fulfilled my empathy, she directly threw the thermal box on the ground, covered herself with the quilt, and pretended to be asleep with her eyes closed. And I calmly dealt with all her acts of making things difficult. But then, when Schemer wasn't paying attention, I used her phone to send a message to Traitor, asking him to come to the hospital immediately. After doing all this, I directly hid outside the corridor, just waiting to watch the show. There was only Schemer left in the ward. Traitor arrived shortly after. Schemer, are you okay? Schemer asked in surprise. I'm fine. Why did you suddenly come to the hospital? Didn't you send me a message just now saying that our child might be born prematurely and asking me to come to the hospital and stay with you right away? As he spoke, he gently touched Schemer's bulging abdomen. This child must not have anything wrong with it. Otherwise, we won't be able to get a share of the Astor family's property. Seeing that Schemer didn't say anything for a long time, Traitor raised his head in confusion. My father was standing at the door of the ward with a livid face. You two shameless people. When Traitor realized that something was wrong, my father had already started fighting with him. At first, he silently took a few punches. It was only when my father started hitting him hard that he began to fight back. The whole ward was in chaos. As a result, Traitor exerted too much force for a moment and accidentally pushed my father down by the open window. Schemer let out a scream of fright, and then covered her stomach with a pained expression on her face. The baby. Save my baby. I rushed into the ward in a hurry and looked down from the windowsill. My father happened to fall on the flower bed and was unconscious. Traitor didn't expect such a situation to occur either and stood there dumbfounded. In the corridor, I don't know who started shouting. Someone's been murdered. Someone's been murdered. Everyone, Call 110 quickly. Only then did the people watching the scene come to their senses. Several kind-hearted people quickly took out their phones and called the police. And Traitor, who had been standing there like a statue, also came to his senses when he heard this and turned around to run. How could I give him a chance to slip away? I blocked the exit of the ward immediately and waved my phone. I've recorded the whole process. Even if you run, you'll still be wanted. With his way blocked, Traitor's face showed an anxious and ferocious expression. He snatched my phone out of anger and threw it hard on the ground. The phone broke into pieces instantly. I looked at him with a half-smile. Go ahead and smash it. Anyway, having fulfilled my obsession, I've already backed it up. Before Traitor could say anything more, the nearby police had already arrived. With a click, the cold handcuffs were fastened around his wrists. And Schemer, who witnessed all this, fainted from a mixture of fear and shock. Fortunately, the ward was on the 3rd floor, and the distance from the ground wasn't too high, so my father managed to survive. But he broke both his legs and could only lie relying on a wheelchair from then on. Later, Traitor's father and mother came to my house to ask for forgiveness. Without a doubt, they were turned away and were scolded and driven away by my father. I heard the news about Traitor and Schemer again half a month later. I was flipping through the latest local news push, and this messy affair actually made it to the civil livelihood section. Although aliases were used, I could tell at a glance that the main characters in the news were them. Traitor was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the crime of intentional injury. And on that day, Schemer was so angry and anxious that after she fainted, she didn't manage to keep the baby. Not only that, but she also went crazy, saying repeatedly, I clearly already am the female lead. Why is this happening? This is impossible. The last time I heard news about Schemer was that she was bitten to death by a wild dog while picking up garbage. Before she died, she was still holding half a cup of Jiangxi latte in her hand. Life gradually returned to normal. After graduating, I took over all the company affairs. Although I didn't make the company's development take off, it was still showing a steady upward trend. On the lawn outside the villa, I was holding a little kitten and comfortably curled up in a rattan chair. Suddenly, hadn't fulfilled my I saw my assistant leading a little girl over. President Astra. This is one of the children from the mountainous area that you sponsored last year. She has asked us many times and has always wanted to thank you in person. I took the thank you letter she wrote by hand and read it carefully word by word. From the crooked handwriting, I could see the purest gratitude. Thank you, I said softly. The girl tilted her head in confusion. What did you say, sister? I looked at her against the sunlight. Her pupils were clear and bright. Thank you for making sure that my kindness wasn't let down.